All right, well, let's go ahead and dive in. So for those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Allison Teagarden. I'm the head of product at TeamSense and co-founder, and I've been a part of TeamSense since day one. And it's really been a pleasure to get to work with all of you in terms of figuring out how we can enable you to connect with your hourly employees. So if for any on the call who might be new to TeamSense, just a really quick overview of what is TeamSense? What do we do? So TeamSense automates the call-off process, and through that actually establishes a digital connection to hourly employees that we can then leverage for communication and engagement. So the interesting thing about TeamSense is, there's a lot of platforms out there. They're often built on top of native mobile apps, and they're used for communication and engagement with employees. A lot of times they really struggle with employee adoption, getting people to download an app. A lot of times employees don't really see the value for themselves. And so if they could get even half their workforce to download the app, that's considered a win. With TeamSense, we start by automating the call-off process, which is something that every employee needs to use at some point, and that drives this 100% adoption, which then establishes this digital connection that can be used for all sorts of communication and engagement purposes. Everything from making sure employees are aware of what benefits are available to them, to posting open shifts, to publicizing engagement events. We've seen people use it for all sorts of really creative applications. And so what I want to talk about today is sort of how we're building more and more into the product that is enabling this automation of the call-off process and ultimately that communication and engagement through that digital connection. And awesome, I'm seeing more people join. Welcome, everyone. If you'd like, please feel free in the chat to drop an introduction of yourself and what industry you're in, and if there's any particular thing you want to learn about today or questions that you have. So moving on, I just want to start by kind of giving an overview of what we've just released into the product. So September 2023, last week, we did a release of new features to the product. And there was a variety of things in here. And many of you probably saw either the announcement email go out or a pop-up in TeamSense if you're an existing customer. But basically, the highlights here: attendance history and points before call off. So I'll show you this in a moment, but basically when an employee calls off now, we show them their last rolling 12 months of history. And if we have a points integration with your organization, we show them their points balance. And the goal here is really to provide transparency, help an employee understand where they stand when it comes to their attendance before they choose to call off. Number two, we released a new role. In the previous intro, Carrie mentioned that that's something she's really interested in learning more about, is this new permission structure. So we're going to go over that a little bit. Another thing some of you have requested, and we're really excited to get in front of you, is that those of you who use dial-in call-off with TeamSense, it now supports unrecognized numbers. So many of you know that one of the sort of hallmarks of the TeamSense system is that when an employee texts into TeamSense for the first time, if we don't recognize their number, we automatically can take them through a flow that signs them up, captures that contact information, and ensures it's always up to date. Well, now we do the same thing with dial-ins as well. So if you have employees who are dialing into TeamSense to call off, we also take them through that flow to help them identify themselves and, should they choose, update their phone number. We added some sorting for the attendance log. Those of you who are going through, 50 call-offs a day in that attendance log wanted a bit more ease of navigation, so we brought that to you. And for those of you who use the attendance report export, you might notice there's a new column in there, which indicates the identity of who marks an absence as synced to your time and attendance system. And this is really just making sure that you have that tracking capability, data audit capability, so you always know what is going on within the system at TeamSense. So I'm going to dive into the top 2 items on this list in a little bit more detail. If you have other questions, we can cover those at the end on any of the other items. So feel free to drop those questions in the chat. Shannon, one of our team members, is in here and she is capturing all these questions, and we'll dive into those at the end. So first of all, let's talk about attendance history. So some of you may know that in August, we actually released the concept of an attendance history for the very first time. And I just want to start by sharing a little bit of our vision for this. You know, when we come to the concept of attendance, one of the things that we talk to our customers a lot about is the idea of transparency. And what does it mean to have transparency in the attendance process? There's so much frustration, sort of on every angle of the absence process, whether it's the employee calling off, the supervisor trying to manage their, get their line up and running and trying to manage absences, to the HR team that's trying to make sure these are captured appropriately and that these are flowing correctly to payroll. There's a lot of different challenges where people don't feel like they have the full picture of what's going on, and people are spending sweat and tears every single day trying to stitch this picture together. And so as we at TeamSense look at what we're developing in the product, one of our biggest goals is providing transparency to employees, transparency to supervisors, and transparency to HR. And so this is one piece of that, is really enabling employees to understand where they stand when it comes to absences. And so for those of you who maybe haven't tested it out, we basically, what happens is, I'm going to actually show you in a moment. Let me try to share my screen. We actually provide this screen right before call off. So, typically when an employee is calling off in TeamSense, let me just share my cell phone screen. Here we go. When an employee is calling off in TeamSense, they're texting in the word absent, and it responds with their absence form. And when they click to open up their absence form, what we're showing them now is this attendance history for them. So historically, we would take them right into the absence form and ask them more details about their absence. Now we preempt that and say, hey, before you call off, just wanted to let you know where you're standing with regards to your absences. For those of you who don't have a points integration, those employees are just going to see this piece here, which is, here are all the absences that TeamSense has recorded for you in the last rolling 12 months. If you do have a points integration with us, we'll go ahead and show that points balance, and we'll show when it was last updated, so they understand. We realize points balances often aren't precisely live within an organization's system of record, and so we show that timestamp to say like when it was last updated by your organization. And then we give them the option to go ahead and still continue to report their absence. So then they would move right into that absence form just like they always have. So very straightforward, very simple, but again, providing that level of transparency for employees. And our hope with this transparency is that ultimately that creates the environment for accountability, that employees understand where they stand and can take ownership of their attendance in a way that was more difficult in the past. On top of that, we have heard from many of our customers that supervisors or HR are frustrated at constantly trying to answer questions on my points balance. What's my points balance? And so we're hoping that this provides some efficiency and relief for them by letting employees check that directly. So super excited about this update. If you don't have a points balance integration with TeamSense today and you are interested in adding one, please reach out to your customer success manager. And you can reach your customer success manager at success@teamsense.com, and they'll get in touch and can walk you through what that looks like. So awesome update, and huge thanks to the team and to all of our customers who collaborated with us on this and bringing it to life. Second update I'd like to share is this team leader role. So some of you mentioned at the beginning, as you were talking about the things you wanted to learn, is basically we've historically kind of had really only two roles in TeamSense. There's been an employee role, and they can fill out their absences, receive communicate messages, they can access the portal, and then there's the admin role, who can see and use all of the different features in TeamSense for their particular scope, whether it's the entire company or a particular site. However, as we've chatted with more and more of our customers and understood how they're using TeamSense, we've seen the need for a middle role in between those two extremes, and that's where team leader has really come to life. So the team leader role is a role that was designed for managers and supervisors. It gives a limited view of what an admin might see, enough for a manager to be able to respond to absences and effectively manage their team, but not so much that it's going to overwhelm them with functionality. So specifically, a team leader has on-demand access. So team leaders, similar to admins, are going to have an email and password login where they can go to app.teamsense.com, whether from their phone or from their desktop, log in and access their absence history for their particular team. The attendance history for their team can include survey responses or not. So that's a decision that can be made by your organization on whether team leaders should be able to see absence form responses. Most of you have opted to do that, and that is the default. But if you have concerns about that, you're welcome to reach out to our team at support@teamsense.com, and we can go ahead and hide those for you. And then they also have access to some basic employee info. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just show you. There's no better way to understand this than to get a sneak peek. So this is actually what a team leader sees in TeamSense. So this probably looks familiar for any of you who are current customers and are admins in TeamSense. You'll recognize this view as your attendance summary. And you'll see for this particular organization, they have enabled their team leaders to see absence responses. So I'm seeing here, for example, Arthur Dent, he submitted an absence indicating that he had a family emergency, and that's showing up as an unscheduled absence. In the event that your organization chose to hide those responses, this simply wouldn't show up for your team leaders. They wouldn't be able to see the details of what an employee mentioned in their absence form. And the reasons that you may choose to hide that could be concerns about privacy or health information that you may not want team leaders to see. So they have access to all this. They can navigate to and back and forth in the history. So if you're a manager and you're filling out time cards, if you don't remember who was out last Tuesday, TeamSense can go ahead and make that very clear for you. You'll notice that they don't have access to attendance insights right now, which is really showing sort of where which sites or which teams have the highest absence rate. But that's something we're considering adding in the future. And so if that's something that you're interested in, we'd love to hear from you and kind of chat with why that would be interesting to you. On top of the attendance view, they also have a view of employees. Now, this view is scoped to everyone that's sort of below them in the organization. So anybody that reports up to that manager will automatically be shown here. And then if they're noted as a backup manager for anybody, they'll also see those teams here as well. So it's not the whole site, it's scoped to whomever you control in terms of what they need to see. They'll be able to click into any of these employees similar to an admin. So if we go ahead and let's just go ahead and look at Arthur, we can see that unscheduled absence that we saw earlier. But you'll notice that they only have access to the status calendar. So none of the other typical pieces of functionality that you would see here as an admin, they don't appear for a team leader. They also have some very light editing access. So they can edit an employee's demographic info, so like their name, if they have a language preference, and their contact information. But they won't be able to edit things like employee ID or what site they belong to or their manager, or even their groups. So these kinds of pieces of information stay the purview of the admins only, and can only be edited by you. And then finally, they do have the ability to add an absence if they so choose. So let's say an employee reaches out directly to a supervisor for some reason, or doesn't use TeamSense, so it's not automatically stored. Maybe there's even a no call, no show, and the supervisor wants to add that into TeamSense. They can go ahead and do so. And so that capability has been provided to them as well. You'll notice up at the top, there isn't a communicate tab and there isn't a portal tab. So team leaders don't have the ability to send any communicate messages at this time, and they have no control over what links and information show up in the portal. So a really lightweight version of what sort of the admin experience looks like, giving supervisors and managers exactly what they need, but not burdening them with a bunch of extraneous things. So really excited about this, and something you're going to see more of in the coming months. We're going to continue to be sort of building up the capabilities around these different roles and permissions in TeamSense. And so if you have any feedback, we would love to hear it. And I'll share this contact information towards the end, but you're welcome to always send product feedback to ideas@teamsense.com. Any suggestions or thoughts that you have, we always love to hear them. And then I'm looking at the chat. I saw there was a few questions about seeing wanting to see some of the points in the admin dashboard. Teresa, I love that. We are actually exploring that right now. And so if you are interested in kind of seeing prototypes and sharing your feedback with us, again, reach out to us at ideas@teamsense.com, because we'd love to share kind of our thoughts and hear your thoughts and learn from you and what would be most useful. So working on that view. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you all for questions. Like I said, there's a few other items in this release that I didn't go into in depth. Happy to answer any questions on those here. Or you're also always welcome to reach out to our team with any questions at support@teamsense.com. But with that, a lot of exciting things. Again, huge thanks to the team and to every customer who joined us on a call and sort of shared their learnings and perspectives and how TeamSense could improve. Really appreciate your thoughts and suggestions and feedback. And hopefully bringing these things to life is really exciting and satisfying for you all. So I will go ahead and open it up. If you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat, and Shannon can kind of moderate a little bit. I think you can also privately message Shannon if you don't want to publicly share your question in the chat, and she can share it with me. So Shannon, any questions?
Yeah, Allison, I've actually got one that came through. Let me go back to the message. Give me just a second. Okay. Question is, can we have other balances added into TeamSense outside of points, like
Great
vacation?
Question. Yeah, absolutely. So many of you have a vacation balance, a sick day balance, or whatnot, things that are outside of points, but are also super important for employees to understand where they stand when it comes to attendance. We are looking into that and exploring how we could add those into TeamSense right now. So if that is something that is of interest to you, again, would love to chat with you and kind of hear about how you think about these balances. What's the most important to you in terms of what employees, supervisors, and admins see when it comes to these balances. So again, would love to hear from you at ideas@teamsense.com and set up a call and kind of walk through like what would be most helpful for you.
Excellent. And Teresa just chatted. She said she's noticed that in the new release, the default dashboard is on the last date that she was at the system instead of today's current date. Is that intentional?
Great question, Teresa. Yeah, so yes, it is intentional, though we've been, discussing this with some of the feedback we've been receiving. So the idea is that for those of you who are a little curious of what Teresa's asking, so you'll notice that this shows, the attendance summary for a given date. Let's say, right now I have it on today, but let's say I want to see, who was out on September 4th. Turns out that nobody was out on September 4th, but if I go ahead and navigate to employees and then navigate back, it stays on September 4th. It doesn't come back to today. And the reason that we had done it that way was because we had found people were, going and looking into employees' records, and then, they were probably in the middle of something when they were looking at September 4th, and so we didn't want to take them away from that. So we've kept them on that date. However, some of you are saying that this is not always what you're anticipating, that you're on the same date. And so we're, trying to understand what could be most helpful. Teresa, I don't know if there's, you have particular feedback on what might be more helpful for you or not, but if so, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'd love to hear it. Got it. When logging out and logging in, it'd be nice to be on the current date. Awesome. We'll see if we can make that happen for you, Teresa. Other questions?
All right, Allison, we got another one. How do we add a points balance integration if we're interested in doing that?
Yeah, so points balance integrations, we can go ahead and set up with you. Depending on how you store your points balances today, it could be, we've seen everything from Excel spreadsheet to a Google sheet to stored in your time and attendance system. Maybe it's in UKG and Workday or whatnot. We can go ahead and set up an integration with whatever data you have, as long as we can organize it in some sort of spreadsheet file that has employee ID and their points balance. And if you are interested in setting up a points balance for your organization, a points balance integration, please reach out to your customer success manager and they can get that going for you. So again, it's success@teamsense.com if you're not sure your customer success manager's email address, that will get to them for sure. And usually implementing a points balance integration is fairly quick. The hardest part is probably getting that information from you all, but once we have that, it's really quick on our end, so we can make it happen very quickly for you. Other questions?
We just got another one. Can you show us an example on the admin side of where we would see the employees' point totals? Good question,
Carrie. Fantastic. Thank you. So this is the piece that I was mentioning earlier. I'm going to go ahead and sign into an admin account instead of a team leader account. This is the piece that I was mentioning earlier that we are working on right now. So actually right now you don't see the admin, or an admin does not see point totals in their employees page. So we're working on kind of retooling what this page looks like to help bring to life, where an employee stands with a little bit more information about, points or balance totals, as well as their history of absences, trying to make it clearer how to see patterns in somebody's absences. And so I've been working with a variety of different customers, sharing some prototypes and getting some feedback. If you're interested in providing feedback or sharing what your needs would be on this, we'd love to chat. So again, ping us at ideas@teamsense.com. We can set up a call and would love to hear your thoughts on what would be most valuable to see here. Other questions? Fantastic, Carrie. Looking forward to chatting more. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, one last item. So I mentioned that I'd share the contact information one last time at the end. How to get in touch. If you are not an existing customer and you're interested in getting a demo for your organization, please reach out at contact@teamsense.com. If you have any technical questions, need help, wondering how something works in the product, our support team is awesome. So please ping them at support@teamsense.com. If you have product feedback or ideas, please reach out to the product team at ideas@teamsense.com. And we've got a lot of new exciting things coming. So we're super excited to share more. And then finally, I just wanted to note that our next webinar is going to be in a couple weeks with our CEO, Sheila Stafford. She's actually going to be doing a webinar from the Women in Manufacturing Conference. And it's going to be really awesome. So if you're interested in joining that webinar, Shannon's saying it's next week. Feel free to drop in the chat and we'll make sure that you get an invite for that. And with that, everyone, please have a fantastic week. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning. And we look forward to seeing you at webinars in the future.